Good afternoon, Internet. It is a drizzly Sunday afternoon, and we are here to talk about a place where no rain ever seems to fall. Star
You know,
Wars. Unless you live on that one planet where they make all the clones. And if
may
you...
the force be with you.
Alright, so, this is a topic to which I am relatively new. I'm no great expert when it comes to let's just call it the Lord of the Star Rings, when it comes to Star Wars. So why don't we talk about this one? So Matthew, what inspired you to suggest this topic for a podcast episode?
Well, where do I start? I mean, like, I probably am more interested in Star Wars than the average person. I've explored the expanded universe. Probably not as much as Gabrielle, though, because she's read the Thrawn trilogy and I have not. And she, I think, probably knew it before I did. Not because she's younger, but because she's Gabe.
Also true. So
For those who don't know, that's just Drew's girlfriend. But
yeah,
really loves the expanded universe.
so this is a topic that I kind of didn't expect to talk about. So why is this a topic that interests you so much? Like why
Well,
are you so into it? Because
I
I feel
think
like a lot of my questions are going to be like more direct. I feel like I have a lot of questions, but they're mostly questions directed at you. Because like I'm
that's
not.
fine.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can both kind of agree, this kind of being a very fantasy-oriented podcast, that like Star Wars is pretty much a fantasy, and like as Matthew Colville said, like the
Mhm.
sci-fi is kind of like wallpaper in a way.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
Sci-fi. It's sci-fi wallpaper. It's a space opera, which makes you ask: is it the greatest space opera? Because the only space opera that's really had a lot of success.
that's true. I mean, like I guess maybe Marvel with Marvel to some degree, maybe I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think 2001 would count as a space opera, would it?
No, because as Matthew Colville says, that it was that movie Ask What If, along with movies like Children of Men and Interstellar, like they actually are going for the speculative angle of speculative fiction.
What if? Star Wars, there is no what if. There just is what? So why do you think that Star Wars has stuck around so well despite its very obvious flaws?
It really does tap into Jungian stuff, which is about, I disagree with Jung with it having more universal psychology and more with the fact that we have common experiences and they've had the way that Star Wars kind of played out in people's lives in personal ways, like, oh, my boss is Darth Vader or whatever, and just the fact that it's just so parodyable. Um, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's very universal and it works on all these levels.
Okay, so going with the Jungian concept of like the shared story, like the shared imagery that that expresses itself in our subconscious. Is that where we're going from here?
I don't agree with Jung. I don't believe in a unverifiable subconscious. I believe in verifiable shared human experiences that we look at movies like Star Wars and we can connect it with that because we all experience life the same way. I
So
mean, yes, we have the same hardware, but like to view things with our five senses, but we all have similar social things like religion or technology or father figures.
okay, so that how you get quite there without going full Jung, that's tricky without going full psychoanalytic, because I like psychoanalytic criticism. So my thought there, so basically what you're saying is the hero's story in Star Wars, the
Yeah,
hero's
well,
story
just
is
example.
so pronounced
Yeah.
that it fits in with it, that it fits into a universal storytelling language.
Well, yeah, but it also played. It's also one of the first major motion pictures to play with like some genre mixing. I think with the special effects and just the timing of it all, kind of like culminated. We've never forgotten since. And the fact that it's owned by Disney now kind of makes it unkillable.
Unkillable. Hmm. Unkillable. Interesting. What are
Which
many?
isn't to comment on how those franchises have been lately. Like, I mean, I think we can agree that we're probably not going to focus on that so much. Could, but I'm not. We
Has
can
it
talk about it if you want.
has it become less universal? Do you think?
It's become more generic and derogative. Not actually, it's good when it's derogative. Now it seemed to have lost its highbrow features. Like, I think we can kind of look at the older movies and kind of see more of a, say, Kira Kurosawa connection. Now that's like kind of taken for granted
Oh,
because we don't need
what
it. But I think
connection?
Kira Kurosawa is a Japanese filmmaker who wrote
Oh, you're saying Akira Kurosawa.
yeah,
Is that, yeah, okay, I didn't understand what you said. Sorry.
okay, but like because of things like, but I think like most people don't know that that was in the original movie. I mean, like that was like inspired, and we don't do that now because Star Wars is such a well-known thing. We don't need to make it good to some degree. I mean, that's something of my opinion in
So
a
you
lot of
think
ways.
Star Wars is lazy?
It's gotten lazy, but it's also gotten weird. Like, um, there's a very good video about this by a YouTube channel called Generation Tech, talking about how Ryan Johnson or whoever directed episode 8 was kind of being a diva on Twitter and like literally mocking fans of Twitter. And he's like, well, imagine if like Ford had that with Mustang. You never want to talk with Ford again. I mean, well, maybe GM would do it, but no. Um,
No, that's a Chrysler move.
no.
I'm kidding.
Who? No.
uh,
I say make them get sold back to Mercedes again. Just at this point, it would all improve them at this point.
that's possibly the single worst idea I've ever heard.
They should have. Well, honestly, the best thing that could have been done for them is they should have died out in the recession. They. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be political. I just that's bad products go the way of the dinosaur, and that's how
No,
it ought to
they
be.
still make Jeep. They still make Jeep.
Oh yeah, well, Jeep is decent, but like Jeep's been Jeep
Keeping it
bought by
afloat.
someone. What? I feel like if they would Jeep was in an just go like in this rabbit travel, like if people really wanted Jeep, they could have sold the IP and like some of the designs and like had someone else do it. I don't know because Jeep was owned by the government originally, I think, right, or something.
You were very much testing my knowledge.
Anyway,
I don't actually like. I don't know who held the patent to begin with. I want to say it was Willis, the company, but
it doesn't matter. Anyway,
I don't know.
basically, I think Star Wars is it's gotten so good that they can like make mistakes for itself. Like Ryan Johnson on Twitter or whoever, like who does that? Like it's so good, like it can afford to do itself, and that's why I think it happens. Like, you know what I'm saying here? I mean, like, again,
I
if we really
do.
want to talk about the new movies, I think that's kind of what the problem is.
Hmm. So, do you miss the expanded universe? Because I never experienced the expanded universe, but it seemed to me like it's much cooler than what they're doing now.
Well, with yeah, I do agree with that, but like, kind of what I wrote in my notes is like one of the problems was that not only is Star Wars not you kind of like with some of the like authors, just like not only just an expanded universe, but in the movies in general, that you have like kind of no singular vision. And
Okay.
at the same time, you kind of shouldn't in a way because, like, first of all, it's not based off of science, so it's not like you for designs for things you should like have a locked way of doing things. But the other side, so you can be artistic on that way. Ships can look radically different across the galaxy or timeline. But the same thing that Star Wars kind of function off of recognizability. And a lot of the things look the same in like the Old Republic era, for example. And this is something that the channel Generation Tech points out. A lot of the, at least in the pre-Disney era, a lot of the expanding universe things look very much the same. And to the point it was boring. But yet the prequel trilogy failed because it wasn't enough like the original trilogy. So you kind of have like a double paradox situation. I mean, like I never saw that before for much. And it could change for Disney, but that's a lot of the problem with the franchise. One aspect, anyway.
Do you think that the franchise suffers from lost potential at this point in its existence?
I don't know what potential could have had after Empire Strikes Back. You see, like,
Interesting.
what was it to begin with? Like, it was kind of an experiment in like making Flash Gordon cool again by making it serious. It's like Buddhism was in space played by white dudes at the same time.
White space Buddhists.
Yeah, I mean, like, my point is, like, how much can you do with that? I mean, like, it kind of.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I think it's what you're saying.
Yeah, no. To some extent, you're right. Because part of me is always thinking, like, okay, the fair defense. I've only watched the entire Star Wars thing
I think you believe you watched all but two
once.
or three.
I watched all of them. I've seen every
All of them by.
movie at least once.
Okay, okay.
I have to tell you, the prequels are brutal. I know there are people who like them. I know there are people who hate them. I neither love them nor hate them. I just think they're ridiculously boring. They're just really boring movies. Like, if they weren't Star Wars, nobody would watch them.
That's true
Because they're
though.
just boring. It's not that they're terrible. I mean, there are times when the acting's pretty bad. Hayden Christensen. You know, the scripts aren't that great, but I mean, they look good. The score is good.
Yeah,
I mean, the story's not bad. It's
yeah.
just boring.
You think like Star Wars can only do so much because, and that's why I think the sequel trilogies feel so forced, even if it's like, well done, and like just
Mm-hmm.
ignoring the whole Chosen One arc, which I feel is almost like non-existent in the sequel trilogy. Like
Mm-hmm.
the franchise can only say so much. I kind of agree that the movie that how do I put this? Like if you want to like get a good movie that repeats the inner lessons of Star Wars and like kind of what it's doing, I think like The Matrix does it better than Episode One, which interestingly enough came out the same year. Like, and it kind of took a different way. Like it had in other parts of Buddhism, like reincarnation and like the Chosen One and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
like you can only do so, and that trilogy kind of and The Matrix kind of did that to itself because again, you can only do so much with Buddhist characters who like fighting stuff. I mean, I think the Wachowskis kind of became better filmmakers after that, even though, as you know from Speed Racer episode, I think
We
they're very hit or miss filmmakers.
we
But
had very strong opinions about the Wachowskis filmmaking. Um,
but you know what I'm saying here? It's
yeah.
not like Star Wars isn't like Doctor Who or Rick and Morty. Like you can take it anywhere because it's sci-fi. It's like despite being sci-fi, it's a very limited franchise, and it's almost not fair.
It is very limited. It's a very limited franchise. And I think people see I wonder if some of this potential that's not there. Like people are seeing like this is something that I had never proposed before, but like could you make a fourth Lord of the Rings book? No.
No,
Cuz
you can.
you couldn't because the story that the world was supposed to tell was finished. Like I get if you're gonna write more about like the writings of like the history and stuff, that's okay to keep fleshing out the world. That's fine. That's great. I really appreciate it for what it is. But for the universe that was, for the books that were written, they told the story they were supposed to tell. And like yeah, there's all kinds of potential. You're like, oh, we could go to this place and have an adventure, or go to that place and
Yeah.
adventure. But you didn't, and you shouldn't
And then
because
if you really want to, you make something like an anthology collection, like The Ladies of Grace Ado for Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, or you do a Silmarillion, which is an approach I don't agree with, but that's what Tolkien did.
all right. So okay, that covers most of the stuff.
But if you think about though, like just to go back to what we were saying, like
Mhm.
the only reason The Empire Strikes Back is not because it expanded on the themes of religion or the deep stuff, because it kind of added character twists. And as because like I'm Achillean, like I think that theme should drive story and
Theme.
exploration of theme. But
Interesting.
but
Define theme.
like how Hamlet, I don't know, Hamlet explores themes of madness.
Hmm. So the question is, does Hamlet explore madness or indecision?
The point is that theme should drive story,
Got
according
it.
to you, or thereabouts. Just read his stuff. You know how I say I butcher his arguments when I try to. I'm a bad apologist, but that's kind of the gist. But going back to what I said, Yeah, and if you think about like Lucas kind of followed that way of thought. Like he um he he made like Anakin the entire point of Star Wars. He like took another character twist that we didn't know that kind of revealed itself in the movies, and like that's kind of almost the theme of Star Wars. To the point it's like who is related to who, which I think why there's a lot of hullabaloo about Rey's parents, because that's expected to be the twist of Star Wars when it wasn't, or it's not important.
Knowing them, it will come up in the third movie with like 30 minutes to go. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
What were you saying?
Because I don't know if theme is. I mean, theme is okay. Like I was saying, exploration of a theme is an important element of a story, but I think to boil down a
Not
story
boil
to
down
the.
drives the story. Exploring by story themes. It drives it.
I mean, that's theoretical, but the problem with
Every
that,
story has pretension. Okay, that's what I see.
every story has
Even if it's to teach children, it's Dora the Explorer. I mean, come
every
on.
story has intention.
Attention and pretension seem depending on how you look at it.
Oh, I would be inclined to agree. However, I would say that you look at there are character-driven stories and there are plot-driven stories. I think you could have theme-driven stories, but I think you'd say that all good stories should be driven by exploration of theme.
I did not say that.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was your exact statement
By
again?
Keelian standards, stories should be driven by theme.
Okay, so I think that's too narrow a focus. I think stories should have strong themes and palpable themes. They should have themes that can be explored, that are explored. But I think saying that the exploration, a theme needs to drive a story. That's
Well, if you look at a lot of the stuff that Keely looks, the psychology, like meaning like the way characters look at these things and the philosophy of it, that kind of the exploration of philosophy and psychology, since again, you need characters for a novel to work, kind of are like intertwined. Like a very good example is this recently written, a book well, not recently, it's 50 years old. A book I recently read called Ice by Anna Kavan. And it's as much as how the character experiences a post-apocalyptic world is the theme of apocalypse itself. But not everyone can do that, and it's why it's considered a 5-star novel by Keelian standards, because it's the apex of how you would do something like that.
okay. So you're saying the character's personal entanglement with the concept of apocalypse.
In that case, yes.
In that case, leads to the apocalypse being greater than the character.
Keeley has said that fiction is a reflection of how humans see things, and philosophy is a study of human limits, and psychology is how we study how humans perceive things mentally. So it all is like intertwined at its best. That's why I think I love Titus Grown so much, because it's like recording a dream. It's perfect.
Interesting. Very interesting. Hmm. Philosophy is the test of human limits.
Study. Study of human
Study of
limits.
human limits. Don't know if I agree with that, but it's a lot to think about at least.
I actually don't even know if Keeley said that, but he might have said something similar to it.
So, meanwhile, as we slowly pedal our way back to Star Wars, it's got rather. So then, what is the theme of Star Wars?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, balance if you take account of the prequel trilogy, but it seems like the sequel trilogy kind of threw that to the wind. It doesn't even acknowledge it.
Anakin. So the exploration of the idea of Anakin as the center of the Star Wars.
Well, they never really just even the expanded universe. They seem to like kind of beat around the bush. Is what does balancing the Force mean? Because the dark side clearly exists after Episode 6. The Sith don't, but the dark side does. And if they do, then what was the point of Anakin existing? Unless the prequel trilogy is non-canon, but there's hints that it's not. It's still canon, See, this is another reason I don't like sequel trilogy. It seemed to like flush everything down the toilet. But and yet to even acknowledge / deal with these facts, try to fix them.
Yeah, that's bad. No, I agree with that. It's though I do have to say I think that Kylo Ren is at least an interesting villain. At least he's interesting. Is he
Yeah,
whiny? Yes, but is he at least interesting?
he's not
Yes.
whiny like Anakin, but he's
Yeah.
Adam Driver is a great actor, I think.
Yeah, no, I know a lot of people complain about Kylo Ren, but I actually think Kylo Ren's a pretty good villain. I mean, as much as the Emperor was kind of an iconic villain, he was kind of like the classic. Like, I mean, would you have been shocked if he just came out one time just twirling like an old timey mustache with like rope and like dynamite?
That actually would have been kind of cooler. Think of it.
Yeah, I will tie you to the intergalactic whatever, and then you will be burned into oblivion unless Luke Skywalker comes to rescue you.
The maglev train in Solo.
Maglev,
That
Emperor Dastardly. What that should be our what if, Matthew. If we ever write a science fiction, our what if should be what if Dick Dastardly was the Emperor in Star Wars.
yes, we'll have Gabe do a fanfic.
It's a fanfic crossover. I love it. I love it.
Somebody's probably done that already.
Somebody has probably. I don't know. So, I don't know. Like, I'm out of questions about Star Wars. Like I said, I don't have that many opinions on Star Wars. Other than the fact that I really liked the first two movies and was kind of bored by the rest.
Why do you think that is, though? Just other than the boring, just why do you think it's not your thing? Because
Lack of plot development. Either lack of plot development, lack of character. I would be lying if I said there was no character development. But I think we see character development very obviously. The only character who really has obvious character development, like significant character development, is Han Solo. Like, Darth Vader has theoretical character development. I mean, but then again, he's just like, bad, still bad, really bad, bad. Throw the Emperor into a pit, die.
I think this kind of reveals what we like about writing. Because I'm like, oh, themes, and I know where that comes from, Keeley. But then you're like, character development, which I hear a lot in like writer workshop and school classes. I don't know. I guess it's like a big trend that's been going on.
It's not a big trend. It is writing characters. It kind of always has been. It's the development of the character, the development of another self. How do you make a believable character? How do you write a character that lives in the world of your story?
Right, but what's the apex? Is the apex of it in itself, or is it the trying to get to the ultimate goal of using characters to explore themes in a timeline, which is the passage of time, which is a novel?
Depends on the story.
Well, if I guess this goes back to value. Is like if you don't care about the other, then like why do you why do you want it? I mean, like again, like like you just write pulp that's just like entertainment. But like again, if you're Keely, you want to have good use of your time.
I'm sorry, I don't understand your response. What are you trying to say?
Nothing in particular. I'm just saying, like when you're going for that more arc fantasy thing, then you're gonna like focus more on exploration things to begin with, rather than like the pop fantasy where it's just entertainment. It's just you're going to have character development being the crowning achievement of character development.
Okay, so
For someone like Keeley is trying to use character development for the sake of theme exploration, rather than for its own sake of like, oh, that was an entertainment book. It's like, wow, that was really deep.
okay, so well, the thing is, de- hold on, depth is depth is depth is interesting. I don't know. The idea of character development, like character development, can be a book unto itself. Like Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse is a book unto itself. Go, we're back. We had a wee interruption. Um, but now we now have returned. I'm sorry, I had a phone call I needed to take. So I was talking about why I didn't like Star Wars. We talked about some character building, whether it's an end to itself, which I think it can be. I'm gonna say I would refer you to Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse.
I mean, if you're writing Keelian fiction, like you can't write. Not that you can't write pulp, is just like it's like you can't do it for its own sake. But yeah.
Well, I agree, and I think pulp is not something that's known for character building. Is what I'm saying. Is like
But it's not known for its themes. Is my bigger point. But I do
right.
think that a lot of times that more artistic fiction kind of does like get certain aspects of character being better. Like I'm a big fan of Shane Carruth, and he does dialogue perfectly from a realism point of view. Like he sounds like two guys were recorded basically on a
Mm.
bus. Like it's perfect. But that's not the point of the movie. It's like a scientifically accurate time travel movie. In the case of Primer. So
Okay, I mean, I understand, but then again, that depends on school. That depends on your school of thought. What if you're a formalist? If you come from a formalist school of thought, then the language itself is the point. Da 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 da, and on and on and on. So there are many schools of thought that have fought kind of over this, idea. So
but with Star Wars, it's like, yeah, I don't think he took like this is I think another reason why I like Terry Gilliam. Like he did take the kind of fictional aspects of the world and do with it enough. I mean, like he did the best he could with one, but it kind of makes you wonder if like Lucas is a one trick pony. Like I found out a lot of stuff like through Matt Orville, but like a lot of the stuff that like wasn't in Lucas's vision. Like Marcia Griffin kind of understood like suggested that Obi-Wan Kenobi die, and the whole trench run at the end with the Death Star.
yeah,
Like Lucas has always said he's hated writing. If you look at his other non-Star Wars projects like Strange Magic and Red Tails, it's not really good movies.
he did have E.T. though.
That's Spielberg.
That's right. There. Oh dang it! You're right. That is Steven Spielberg. What,
My
what else?
case.
What else has George Lucas actually done?
Indiana Jones, I think he helped with, and then he did something called Willow in the '80s. That's about it.
Willow. That has some sort of reputation.
Actually, he made that because he couldn't adapt the Lord of the Rings. He couldn't get the copyright, so he did his own thing.
That's right. That's what that was. It was a fantasy movie.
It was actually helped around by the Muppet Company or something. It came out the same year as I think Labyrinth. Now to come to think of it, maybe it's shot on the same stages. Now that I think about that too.
Hey, look. All I'm going to say about the Muppets is that first of all, Bear in the Big Blue House was an amazing children's show, and second of all, Jim Henson's passing was eerily close to Kim Jong Il's return to public life.
Dr. Seuss also, I think, died on the same day.
That's a sucky day. That's a really sucky day, dude.
C.S. died the same day I think Kennedy died, or the day before, or something.
Which Kennedy?
John F.
Oh,
What
John F.
else?
I'm sorry.
Oh
It could
well,
have
there.
been Robert.
Killed. What?
It could have been Robert.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know. Oh, okay. So, what are some other things you think about Star Wars? Because I mean, outside of my two kind of ending questions for you, I don't really have anything else in my notes,
That's fine.
which I just threw across the room. So what thoughts do you have?
Well, I've kind of been beaten up on it for now, but there's some great things. Like if I haven't said it right, I kind of am more or less still a fan. Like I think like
Okay.
a lot of things have been told already. Even though there's like it's a funny thing. Another limit with Star Wars. Just going over this real quickly. Like I think this is why Star Trek wins. Is like you can't a lot of things that make Star science, and this goes back to not being science fiction. That if you try to put science concepts in Star Wars, either they get like combed over in the greater expanded universe canon, or they just don't work, and like everything else falls apart. Like Star Trek can do that. It's just like you have to kind of add more stuff to the canon, and when that works, is like kind of like with Rogue One, it kind of made Luke's victory of the Death Star kind of cheap because they had to make new stuff to make the franchise go on because like the thermal exhaust port was done on purpose. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? Kind of cheapens the victory a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. That bothered me because do you ever see the Dorkly episode about the Star Wars the Death Star engineer?
No, I don't watch that.
But it was like, has it ever occurred to you that the only way this could possibly happen is a miracle? And oh wait, that's what just happened. There we go. It was like, do you think that like a vehicle this size having this small of an exhaust port isn't a technological marvel? Oh wait, it is. There, like that. I love, that's one of my favorite episodes. But like
Well,
the like to me to some extent, yeah, no, I agree with you. I think like having that plan, like even though Rogue One was a pretty fun movie up into the end because of a
yeah.
thoroughly unfulfilling ending, but see that's the problem with it. That thoroughly unfulfilling ending takes away the point. Like why would you make it? Because the ending is so unfulfilling.
And the more canon you write, the more you have to like make things interesting. Because again, like Star Wars, it's built on a lot of twists. The more I think about it, and it's like, and in doing so, a lot of times it making things more complicated cheapens other things. Like things can work like Darth Vader is Luke's father, but things can also be cheapened with twists like, oh, the thermal exhaust port was always intentional.
Yeah. The another interesting thing that I just thought of is kind of like so like the one series that I can kind of compare this to a little bit would be it goes sound crazy, but I would compare it to Pokemon. I compare it to Pokemon because one they're cultural juggernauts that started as long shots by people who aren't super famous for doing anything else. That's less true about Pokemon because you know
I think Satoshi Tajiri is like kind of that workaholic genius too.
yeah
Like not so much.
yeah
And he's more of an auteur. Like he kind of, I think he wrote the original programming for Pokemon Red and Blue.
yeah like the difference I see between them is the reason why I think one will last why I think one has transitioned better between generations. Because I think Pokemon has transitioned better. It's just held up better. But one, it is newer. But the thing about it is that it's interactive. Is that there is an accepted sort of outside of yes it has it like the concept itself doesn't have that much depth.
The
But
canon concept is more fluid.
yeah, it's more fluid. Like if something is contradictory, they just say it is what it is. It is what
Yeah,
like that you don't go around like they don't go around like nuking fan theories and saying like because like it's hugely interactive and there's various different aspects of versus Star Wars is more like no, this is what this is. This is like the
yeah.
it's kind of like so like
Aside from Disney like nuking sort of the expanded universe, you're right. They're very hard nosed and set in stone, that kind of stuff.
and even when they contradict themselves, it's no, this is right now. What you thought is wrong. Or like even when you like look at I'm thinking like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is a very strict canon, but
Oh yeah.
it's been preserved by an obvious succession. So, but like with Star Wars, it's
Also,
both.
like one author again with Tolkien,
Yeah,
and a good, smart language scholar too. I think kind of have and keep track of things better.
yeah. Or Star Wars needed somebody who wasn't George Lucas and somebody who wasn't J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams. No.
Guess I should have Wachowski's do it. Really, maybe that was the answer, you know. But the question is, does that mean Jedi would have to learn kung fu?
I mean, don't tell me what they don't already do isn't kung fu.
It's more like uh, that J starts with a J.
Jujitsu?
Kendo. It's kind of more like Jedi Kendo.
It's like really it's like if you mixed Kendo, which is not the world's like fastest sport. I mean, because it's like sizing each other up, then everybody runs together and beats the. I mean, of course, my understanding is not that great. If somebody understands Kendo way better than me, feel free to set me straight. But like, there's that, and it's sort of like it is sort of like Kendo, kind of a little, but not a lot of Western sword fighting, but like mixed kind of with like the really weird swordplay you see. And I don't know if you ever know if you know the game Two Worlds 2.
No, is that a
Okay,
video game?
it's a video game. Look up Two Worlds 2. But like, I'll send you a link to the video that I like about it. But there's this one where it's like this. It's like you're just looking at the guy's feet who you're controlling, and his feet are just going all over the place as he's swinging. He's just like whipping his like this great sword around, like it's nobody's business. And his feet are like going full jujitsu while he's. It's kind of like that.
Okay.
Like I don't know.
I think it's time to say some positive stuff about Star Wars now, though.
It is.
So yeah, I think Star Wars, at least the first movie, should be viewed historically. It did great stuff with special effects, and I think that Blade
Yes.
Runner or Brazil couldn't have done without it. And an Alien really picked your movie, you know.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
made sci-fi actually profitable, which it really wasn't. Like before that, it was like 2001, and then there was a movie called Forbidden Planet. Before that, there really wasn't a lot of big blockbusters.
Forbidden Planet.
That's where we get Robbie the Robot from.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I've
Um,
ever actually seen it. I've seen the trailers.
no, it's a good movie. I recommend it.
I should watch it. It looked like kind of like a good but kind of like goofy by modern standards movie.
I think it worked. It's actually kind of based off The Tempest.
Interesting.
Yeah. The mad scientist is kind of like Prospero, and he kind of leads the spaceship to his planet. It's interesting. You got also like Monster from the Id and the Jukian stuff there too.
That sounds cool. I want to watch that.
It was great because MGM was like, "What if we did kind of more an art house, big budget film instead of fantasy with Wizard of Oz?" Because they were the studio who did Wizard of Oz, like sci-fi, but let's make it like an artistic bent. Like, oh, here's a Tempest. I don't know.
I don't know.
Big influence of Star Trek. I know that.
You can see it visually in the trailer and like the early Star Trek. You can see the visual similarities.
Oh yeah,
That's a word.
it is. But also going back, mentioning Star Trek. I think kind of one thing is that like humans won't change, but like that's not really a bad thing. Like there's always going to be these like universals. Like technology won't change our humanity. Basically, it won't get rid of our human. Or if it does, it does in the form of Darth Vader, or like kind of a, you know,
Or does it magnify our humanity like the internet?
or Luke's prosthetic hand. It's not all bad. Or like the droids, R2D2, C3PO, like kind of shows like the difference between that.
Are the droids people?
It doesn't explore that, but it does have
I know, but
it shows two sides of the technology.
yeah.
I would not say it explores that. If it does it very poorly. If it was a 10.
Yeah, no, you're right. I don't think that explores it, but I think it's an interesting question. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're fine. It kind of makes it the anti-Star Trek, or at least that's what I wrote down, but also like the idea of like evil has to be defeated. And I kind of think it like goes back to like when it came out. Like it was 2 years after like the withdrawal from Vietnam. And there's a lot of counterculture stuff going around, late 70s, there's kind of like this malaise and drug culture was kind of like upon us for the first time.
Yeah.
And it kind of ended that 70s malaise into like kind of the
80s.
optimism of the 80s, as well as like,
Hmm.
as much as it killed a lot of some great gritty sci-fi stuff and prevented it from doing well, like Tron and Blade Runner in Brazil.
Yeah.
I think it really like it launched optimism and this like the desire for a happy ending in Hollywood, and just like, popularization of space opera inside of Star Trek. And like, I almost like see it as a sort of role model of doing to the malaise of post counterculture America with what could be done with postmodern fiction in the face of postmodern fiction. That you can just need one great movie or something like that.
Well, yeah. Even think about how much speculative fiction as a genre took off during the 1980s.
Oh yeah,
Like
it became
how much.
popular in
Yeah.
the 80s too, along with like some satanic panic, I think, too, or something.
Yes.
But
Of
D&D became popular during that
Yeah, it
because of
did.
Star Wars.
They became these sort of these borderline, like these outside literary influences became central cultural things for, and to be perfectly honest, they have never gone away after that,
Yeah, that's true.
or at least since. So it's been almost 40 years now where they've actually been, albeit I think there is some time when they lagged magical realism,
Yeah,
but
magical realism is more of a Latin American thing, from what I understand too.
I can't say that for sure because it's something that I have looked into it because I've seen it in kind of in different places, but it does seem to be more of a more it seems to be more associated with with folk tales or fairy tales rather than like more fantasy. So
Yeah,
yeah,
Borges comes to mind. I don't know.
the crane wife.
The blind Argentine poet who
Yeah,
wrote.
no, I know who you're talking about. I was thinking of another story. No, it's not the crane wife. The crane wife's the opposite of that.
Never heard of that one.
Um, I have heard of it.
Okay. Um, yeah, but like, maybe it kind of is like a sort of 20th century thing too, because you still had, but like, if you look at like modernism was still upon us, but you also look 10 years after Star Wars, get the first Final Fantasy game, Princess Bride comes out, like people were ready for that again, which,
Yeah,
kind of wonder like with the divide going on in America, I don't know if it's going to go the same way. And also like the power of movies might have, at least with movie theaters, might have gone down. Like movies are more commonplace now, especially with binge watching. But I
yeah.
still feel like fiction has that power. Like there's still some, even if it's not independent, there's like something to break through the franchise noise and change the world to some extent.
I yeah. Because if you look at where we kind of are right now, I think culturally, we're kind of in a weird cross between the 70s and I think like the 19
The early
teens.
70s, kind of more like the early 70s. Like, even though I don't think Trump is Nixon, or maybe he is, I don't know.
Interesting. Interesting. I had to think about that.
Yeah, me too, right? I mean, you gotta see where that's coming from.
Oh, like I mean, not. I mean, I'm thinking like politically, like oh yeah, cause oh ew ew. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's more interesting than I thought when you said. At first I'm like, then I'm like, oh oh oh. Right? There's actually something to explore there. I mean, not just. I mean, not like. I mean, are you talking like on like? I'm assuming you're not talking on like a corruption level, but you're talking more
No,
like on more
more
like
like
on
his
a
cultural,
cultural.
like,
Yeah, I
sort
see
of
it.
like how do I say this? Like, I don't know. Bronies are the new hippies. I don't know.
No, but I get where you're going because the whole internet counter. Well, there's sort of a war among countercultures about who's the real counterculture.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
So who
Which
is
is
the
kind
real?
of, and we also have nothing like Vietnam, thank God. But I still think my
We
point
had
stands is that
we had Iraq and Afghanistan. To some extent, we still have Iraq and Afghanistan.
yeah,
Wars that people saw access like they'd never seen before. People discussed it with them. So therefore, we also see more and more graphic representations of death, which may or may not be moving ourselves from them. So I think that we might be on a, I don't know. I think it might not be entirely beyond the point that we could be. Um, I don't know. I would not be surprised if the next sort of major literary movement was a resurgence of the early modernists.
I'm
I would
very skeptical though, because look at modernism. It lasted 200 years. Who's to say that postmodernism won't last 200 years? We're up to 30 years since 1989. That's kind of considered more or less the official start. There's
I
no saying that it's going
Interesting.
to.
I put
I,
postmodernism
literally,
earlier.
it could literally last 200 years or longer. You know, it's usually these things stop and start with big events. So it's gonna because postmodernism to end, it must be kind of rejected by all, just like it's accepted by most. Now, anyway.
Well, when I say modern, I'm thinking sort of specifically kind of. I was thinking more specifically about like. I was thinking this would be kind of a prime climate for an author like T.S. Eliot.
Well, you like comparing modernism to romanticism, and romanticism never bumped modernism out of its place and kind of fizzled out after the 19th century for the most part.
That's true, though I would argue that we have people like I'd argue that we have people like Dylan Thomas, the Welsh poet. Even though the question is how influential really was Dylan Thomas? He had one really famous poem and then kind of not a whole lot. So the question is, is there still a place for romanticism? Obviously, because we still read it. I think you have T.S. Eliot, who sort of struggles with modernist doubt and darkness and romanticism. Like he's
Yeah,
unwilling to
yeah.
embrace. He deals with the tension of the two of them because I mean he is very much
Or you
like
could be like a postmodernist who talks about postmoderns people, like me right now. Oh, I
yeah,
won't say much more than that.
no, I think we. Here's the thing. I think at this point we've hit the bottom though. We've hit the bottom of postmodernism, and we're trying to
I
find
don't
a
know.
way out.
Let's see how the next election goes, and then we can talk about it if we hit the bottom yet. But I get your point.
I'm not talking culturally. I'm talking idea wise. I'm talking like
You know what? Might be true, but you know, it was a good 120 years before we got the Soviet Union when modernism took over. So I just bite my tongue. I mean, I'm a pessimist when it comes to these things. So
true, true. Of course, and again, like if you look at like certain style, oh yeah, you're right. Postmodernism would be exceptionally short for, but then again, also consider a lot of people call postmodernism late modernism.
yeah,
So would that imply that it's all because there are signs of it being sort of a contiguous movement versus like Victorian like sort of like Victorian moralism turning into modernism. That's a hard break around the First World War. So are we at the
well, are you
tail
of
end
the
of a movement?
contention that modernism started in 1789 when the French Revolution created an altar to man's reason in a church? Because that's when most people agree. And then most people agree it's ended in 1989, 200 years later, with the fall of the Soviet. Well, yeah, the Soviet Union, the Eastern Bloc. Because the theme being is the triumph of man to create more or less a utopian world, and that failed. So
Of course, and again, but you have to balance that against the modernist ideal. What's the modernist ideal? The modernist ideal is Ezra Pound, make it new. Of course, then
yeah,
again, and that's relatively new. So the question is, are we at the tail end of a much longer, disjointed but connected unit of thought, or are we towards the early or middle of a relatively new one?
the question is what would set it off. You know, like the AI singularity. You know, discovery of aliens. You know, you never know.
How about consistently good food at IHOP?
That would be a miracle.
It would be a miracle.
But I think what we're both getting at is running low on time.
Yeah.
That so we're sort of more or less in the early '70s culture-wise, and that means that, especially what in knowledge of what we are more or less working on, that it could mean that the launch of maybe a movement that doesn't bump out postmodernism from the king status, but it introduces an alternative just because we're starting to drip into the '70s post malaise with the start of the 2020s decade as coming into our own sort of 21st century '70s.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so do you want to move on to questions?
yes. On that riveting note,
On that riveting note, are we prophets, or did we just not have enough sleep?
I'm fine, buddy.
Oh,
So you want me to go first?
yes.
Okay. So we've had a lot of focus on fantasy fiction for this podcast. Would you be okay if we one day were regarded as the fantasy guys on YouTube, or do you want more of a wider appeal?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
As in yes, I'd love to be those guys, but I certainly don't want that to be our only topic, but if that's our focus, absolutely. I'm
Okay.
down with that. My question for you is, which Star Wars uniform is your favorite among all
Um,
the Star Wars uniforms? Because
no, that's fine. I'm just trying to think.
it's
I think
okay.
just stormtroopers because it's just cool. I don't know.
It's
Like,
very iconic.
oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, probably just because of that. Like looking at like the psychological reasons for that choice. But would I cosplay as one? Probably not. You can't see a thing in those things or
I
whatever.
know, they seem disastrously impractical.
That's why they say stormtroopers can't shoot straight.
Nope.
Probably true to some degree.
Yeah. All right, your second question, sir.
What do you love most with playing a villain in Pathfinder?
Oh, good. Good question. Depends on the villain. If it is like, for example, for those of you who haven't seen the stream over in Crypt Bunny, I'm sorry we had some serious difficulties this week, so we are unable to run a session this week. But hopefully we might during the week. No guarantees. Um, but I will be doing like some lore podcasts and lore streams. So if people have questions, feel free to hop over there, see what we do. Like as playing as Diaz, I like to get to pull out my Inigo Montoya impression. But
At first,
also
that's Aussie accents.
yes, I do love the accents, but playing Diaz is fun because I get to practice staying one step ahead. I get to practice staying one step ahead in playing, the deceased anathema. Um, uh, I mainly just use her to jerk the party's chain. I use her just to push their buttons. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
Okay.
like There's one thing people saying, "Oh, isn't that metagaming if you design your bosses to be hard for your party?"
But
No.
isn't that DMing in general, kind of?
Yes, that is DMing in general. It's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be like. It's you have everything you do is going to end up in some way designed around your party. It's your job to make it seem believable, but
Hmm.
like you're not going to make the final boss. Like, oh, it would make sense here that this guy's a this and he would be prepared for this. Give it some pizzazz. You're in charge. So
And reality is ultimately unpredictable.
yeah, no. Ultimately, you know me. I mean, well,
Yeah.
not you know me. I mean, you do know me, but they know me.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean. All right. So, my last question is also about Star Wars. So, if you could add one thing, no matter how innocuous, no matter how large, into the Star Wars canon or back into the Star Wars canon, what thing would you be sure to add?
I think just like get rid of the whole third Death Star thing.
Okay,
It did not belong. That was
I
lack
can
of creativity there.
I can get on board with that. I can
Amen.
definitely get on board with that. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Yes. Uh, Yep, that's going to be it for tonight. Thank you guys for listening to us ramble about a lot of things. Enjoy the 70s. I hope disco doesn't make a comeback.
It's gonna be dubstep. No, I don't know.
Ugh.
I don't know.
Though we have kind of had a resurgence of like dance music with weird outfits.
Hmm, sure that. You mean like rave or
Yeah,
whatever?
no, is rave the new disco?
That's the next question.
That should be next week's topic. All right. Hope you guys all have a great night. Be sure to tune in to our next episode. Be sure to stay posted for our new posts. And if you have the time, scoot on over to Crypt Bunny and or scoot on over to Matthew's channel, which I just blanked on the name. I'm sorry,
Mr. Fiction one. It's fine.
Mr. Fiction One. I'm sorry. I always want to call you Doctor Fiction and forget the one. I don't know why. All right.
The Doctor
Any
Who.
guys. I hope you have a great night and goodbye.